up. Out here. Hello there, Hawkeye fans, and welcome to the Hawk Fanatic Rapid Reaction Podcast. I was saying on Twitter this morning, I think we need to come up with a different name for this podcast. So if you could come up with something better than Rapid Reaction, how about the morning after? That's what I was thinking about. Because just with the time of these games, it's just really hard for all three of us to get together on a Saturday night, especially the later games. And next week, we're in the same situation with Wisconsin being a 3:00 game. But I digress. I am Rob Howe, joined by Jovan Johnson and Jordan Canzeri, former Hawkeyes. We're here to break down Iowa's 20-14 homecoming win Saturday against Purdue at Kinnick Stadium. Hawkeyes now 5-1 overall, 2-1 in the Big Ten. Big game next week at Wisconsin. We will talk about that later in the podcast, but right now we're going to break things down. And I was working on my column this morning, guys. And Jovan, I said this to Jordan before we started recording. You missed the in-depth pre-show production meeting, which lasted like 10 seconds of me telling him that I'm going to hit you guys with kind of an overall question about yesterday or kind of Iowa football in general. And you guys give me your reaction. And we're going to replace the open floor at the beginning of the podcast where you guys just give me thoughts on your games. We're going to try going in this way instead. And to me, the general theme of my column that I'm working on, you can find it on my feed later, is I'm just fascinated that Iowa is winning football games this way. It's like 2.5 seasons now of not good offense, and Iowa is 23-10 over that. That's almost 70% winning percentage, and won 14 of 21 Big Ten games. Won a division title. Could have won a division title last year if it wasn't for potentially Cooper DeJean's injury in that game against Nebraska. It certainly played a role. But in the hunt again this year, I'm going to give you guys some numbers. I'm sorry to bog down the beginning of this podcast, but I want to be able to set this up. Iowa currently ranks 104th out of 130 FBS teams at 21.8 points per game. The Hawkeyes are 130th last in total offense. They are 106th in rushing, 128 in passing, and 129 on third down conversions. 26%. Last season, Iowa 122 in scoring offense, 129 in total offense. In 2021, ranked 99th in scoring, 121 in total offense. Jordan, I'll start with you. How is this working?
Good old Bill Parker and the Bees, which obviously Jovan can attest and talk a lot more on depth on that. But yeah, it's the passing game was not there last night, but it was great to get Caleb Johnson back. Nice to see that those commercials he's been in ain't slowing him down with running the ball, because he definitely had himself a day with I think he was the average 7.9 with a touchdown. But again, 20 points isn't going to be enough to, I think, beat a Wisconsin. So we definitely have to add to that. And for it not being a missed extra point, 2 scored touchdowns, 2 field goals, I believe. But yeah, we just got to, it's taken over, but just got to just find again the plays to get him to feel comfortable in the pocket and just completions of anything, because I think there's only 6 last night, and I believe all to Eric Hall, if I'm correct. But yeah, we got to be able to do more.
Jovan, they won the game without completing a pass to a wide receiver. Iowa won yesterday without completing a pass to the wide receiver. Help me out. Make sense of this. I'm you, bro.
I've never seen anything like this before in my entire life of playing football. I never seen a game get won by an offense without not one completion to a receiver. Unless you were dominant in the run game, which Iowa had a pretty good day running the ball. I mean, I think Caleb Johnson, getting him back was big for the offense. And then also LaShawn Williams had a good day as well. But Iowa continues to cement itself as tight end U. Eric All had a heck of a day playing tight end in the Iowa offense. And I just don't understand it. But I do. One thing I do know is that when you have a defensive coordinator like Phil Parker, who is as consistent as they come, who consistently puts the defense in position to win, even though they might give up yards, they don't give up touchdowns. And, that bend but don't break defensive philosophy and holding teams to field goals and not touchdowns, you're going to be in more games than you're not. And I think that's the reason that over those years, Iowa has been able to win games. But offensively, got to figure something out. This is going to be a long season if you don't get it all figured out. And it's not like you don't have the guys. It's just a matter of, again, coming up with some creative ways to get guys the football, whether that be motion, shifts, trades. You have the tight end, so, you got to make sure that you're using those guys. But somehow the receivers got to get going because as teams are just going to stack the box and make you have to beat them throwing the football. And as we seen last night, 6 for 21 ain't going to get it done with all your completions going to the tight end. Not going to happen.
Yeah, we'll certainly see how this works next week up in Madison. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. To the point of the guys, I thought Caleb Johnson's early, I think it was the second series, rips off the 67-yard touchdown, played perfectly into Iowa's game plan, which was to play the field position game and not let the offense make mistakes. Getting that early 7-0 lead certainly played into that. Caleb Johnson, LaShawn Williams, 215 yards combined on the ground. Combined, they average 7.1 yards per carry. So that'll get it done. And that, to me, when you looked at that, and Iowa just kind of Purdue was willing to play that game. They were willing to play Iowa's game with punting back and forth in field position. Then and eventually at the end of the third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter, it's 13-7 game. Purdue's feeling good within a score. And then playing the field position game, Iowa starts that drive at the Purdue 45. A few plays later, I think it was after a 15-yard run by LaShawn Williams, set it up the run there, play action, hit Eric All with a 22-yard touchdown down the right side, Jordan. And it was if you're looking for the example of complementary football, this was it. That was it. They played punting after that 7-0 lead, get a couple field goals in there, gave up a late touchdown to Purdue, but that second half was perfect for Iowa. And again, they would love to score 50 points, but you got a first-year starter in there at quarterback. You're limited what you're going to do. You're down your best tight end. I thought it was a good plan.
Yeah, a win's a win, and it's something that, again, we at least executed the running back level, the line with the run game win, and as well with a tight end again, just as Jovan said, continuing the tradition of having trust. The one thing that kind of has been on my mind on this is, the lack of success, especially on the perimeter. It's a thing that doesn't just react or have issues just during the game, but it's going to also linger with, recruiting and getting those individuals, and that could be the next dude, where it's tough when continually scoring low, continually not having much success with the receivers. It's something that we do have to make a major change towards, because again, it's the future as well, that you have recruits that are just watching this and seeing it. And why would a legitimate starred receiver want to go to a school where he would not even have the ball thrown to him? So it's just stuff like that is definitely tough, and it's sad to see as well. But for this year's team and this year's program, it's, again, a win is a win. So even if some areas it's been a little ugly, special teams to defense to offense, certain critical moments has really been complimentary. So again, a win to win.
And I'm with you, JC, on macro, on the big picture. Where do we go from here after this season? What do we do offensively to get this thing going? Because I think, Jovan, the question everybody asks themselves is, if Iowa had an average offense, let alone a really good offense, an average offense, because we're seeing rankings. The best ranking the last 3 years in scoring was 99th, and you got to consider that special teams and defensive touchdowns go into that as well. So the macro is what you do going forward. But with this year's team, Jovan, what is the path here to have success?
I mean, right now, you're going to have to be a game manager, control the clock, put 3 and 4 tight ends out there, try to run the ball, keep other teams' defenses on the sideline, and then try to keep your defense fresh. And then you obviously have Torrey Taylor, who is one of the best in the game. So you're going to be a field position team heavy if you can't score points on offense. But currently, I think, as to what Jordan said, how are you going to get a top receiver or a guy that wants to come to Iowa when you're going to run stretch, run zone, you're going to run inside ISO, you're going to be in 22, 12, 13, 14 personnel. No receiver is going to want to come to an offense where they're not going to get the ball. And that's just not going to happen. So no matter how much you win, if you're never going to throw the ball, getting into spread, you could still get into a 10 personnel look out of 11 and 12 personnel with tight ends. Eric All is a type of tight end that you could split out like a Travis Kelce or something like that, where you can split them out at receiver and be in 11 personnel with 3 receivers and make it look like spread. You have offensive line guys traditionally at Iowa that would have success in a spread out run game. You got the running backs for it. It's just a matter of switching it up and, getting out of that old school, like, we're going to run stretch, we're going to run outside zone, lead ISO. That's just the typical Iowa offense. And it's been successful because the defense has been outstanding.
What have you seen now, Jovan? We've gotten basically 2 full games of Deacon Hill. What do we have here, and what position would you put him in to succeed? What do you think he does well?
I think he has a strong arm and he's a big body. I think you can get him, getting the ball out quick, depending on what you're getting. Maybe if teams are going to play one high and load the box, maybe attacking the seams, attacking the flats. Just different things that you could do with a guy of his caliber, with his skill set. Because the kid does have a strong arm. But, when you're in 12 and 13 and 14 personnel, who's he throwing to? You're not really, benefiting him by, having him with 4 tight ends on the field or 2 fullbacks and 3 tight ends. You're basically in goal line personnel and asking the kid to throw the ball to tight ends all day. And it makes it tougher because tight ends against DBs, they're not going to create much separation. versus guys that are quicker, faster, more instinctive than they are. So, I mean, you just got to be able to spread the ball around and spread teams out and allow him to utilize his skill set. Because right now, I don't think they're playing to his skill set. And then especially when you go on fourth down and you have a guy that can, at 260 pounds, you could just run a 4-for-1 quarterback sneak. He's going to get a first down. I mean, just little things, like it's just little stuff that you can maybe manipulate to help him out.
Jordan, your thoughts here? What can be done here to get the receivers more involved, to play the Deacon's strengths, to make sure that this offense is capable of complementing this defense and special teams, especially next week at Minnesota or at Wisconsin? It feels like they're going to need more offense up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be an established run game, good play action, screens. I mean, my fourth year, we had Damon Powell, and I don't think we have any receivers with like his just A to B speed, but doing screens like what we did with him, different things where it's, again, just getting the ball out quick. But yeah, it's just something that if we don't have a run game, it'll be very, very hard to do. And Wisconsin, as we know, is generally a good defensive team. And are good at defending against the run. I haven't checked so much on their stats and traveling to Madison as well. So, it's going to be something, but we just have to, again, create different matchups with motions and, again, possibly screens where he just gets the ball out fast. Receivers just got to catch the ball and then have somewhat success. Because again, it's something that we won't be able to beat certain teams if we don't.
So moving forward, Jordan, do you kind of approach it the way they did yesterday, where when they weren't in an advantageous position offensively, deep in their own end, even 20, 25-yard line of your own, where you're trying to run the ball, playing conservative offense, do you continue to do that? Or do you have to be more aggressive in a position like next week? Or do you wait to see how the game unfolds? Do you wait and say, okay, if we're in a tight game, let's keep playing the field position game? Or are you aggressive offensively?
I would say it's tough, but for a team like Wisconsin, I would say probably have to play it more on the safer end, because if you try something new and try to be aggressive down more on your end of the field, and there's a mistake of, Hill holds on to the ball too long, strip sack, or they try to throw something and then there's an interception where, again, we know and have the utmost confidence in the defense. So if for right now, if we really, again, don't have people who can be true separators, then we'll have to, again, kind of play it on that safer side. But at the same time, again, when you have somebody back like Caleb Johnson, getting him involved in the pass game, play action, maybe, a little RB wheel action, different things like that. We got to try to get him. We got to try to get the football in his hands and just from handing it off too. So, but again, against a team like Wisconsin, I know that they'll probably want to play it more on the conservative side with just, again, having confidence in the defense if it's closer.
He locked up a little bit there, I think. He locked up for you.
Obviously, if we're down.
No, you're good. You're back. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So what I just said at the end was, yeah, if we're behind, then will have to be aggressive, but if it's a closer game, then I can see that they'll want to go the more conservative route and trust the defense.
JC loves the RB wheel route, as we all do. Joe Vaughn is in Home Depot, I think, or something somewhere else doing a little DIY stuff. Joe Vaughn, when you look at what you said before, what Iowa has on offense, is that the approach? Is the approach just for the offense to not mess it up when the game is close, or are you more aggressive? Do you go at Wisconsin?
I mean, I think you do stick to what's got you to this point. I mean, I would run the ball and I would keep running the ball, and then I make Wisconsin have to defend. I think Wisconsin's strength is that they're always good against the run. But, I mean, I think you have to put them in situations where, they have to defend you on the outside with the receivers, like, stack receivers, motion receivers, because Wisconsin is more of a man-to-man scheme. As far as how they play defense, which allows them to get a lot of guys in the box. So if you're going to play 11, 12, 21, 22 personnel, they're going to stack the box and they're going to make you have to beat them in one-on-one. A lot like what Penn State did, where they're going to live and die with their corners on the edge by themselves, and they're not going to get help. So you got to create matchups, be able to run the ball effectively, take 3-4 yards. If you're getting 3-4 yards of carry, I mean, you can live with that. And then you got to win on first down, get positive yards on first down. And then when you get in third down situations, you got to make it count.
One last point here, because I want to give the defense some love from yesterday and give both of you guys a chance to talk a little bit more about that. We talked coming into this week about, lack of a pass rush and the defensive line taking a while to get going. Well, it got going yesterday and in a big way, and was a big part of that game yesterday. Kind of changed the momentum of that game in a lot of ways. Jovan, do you see anything different there with the D line, or was it just a natural growth development thing?
Yeah, I think they're growing and developing. Kelvin Bell's doing a hell of a job with just having a younger defensive line group and getting the most out of those guys. So kudos to him. He's working with what he's given and what he has. So, those first couple of weeks was more so a growing and development. But now you're starting to see more of those guys starting to get after the quarterback. And I don't think they change much at all schematically, because knowing Iowa, they stick to what they do and they do it well. So it's just those guys are starting to mature. And when you mature as a player, especially being a young guy, you start getting better and you start understanding that you belong on the field.
Jordan, 12 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. I think the defensive line got going yesterday.
Defense, again, they played phenomenal, created turnovers. And even again, my man Higgins, he is just all over. I think again, it was 2 tackles, 10 assists, and then an interception. Like, he's just playing unreal. Definitely stepped up when needed to when losing a guy like Jack Campbell. And then Cooper just getting another turnover. It's just, you can't. Nobody. I am biased, but there's nobody that can argue that Phil Parker ain't the best defensive coordinator in all of football. To just consistently, no matter the position, just rolling, just have guys just be where they need to be, play good, and it's just great football. And there's probably a lot of defensive coordinators out there trying to mimic some of the same, but he's just a defensive guru.
Well said. And yes, really good games by Joe Evans and Logan Lee, 2 older guys I thought played really well on the defensive line as well yesterday. And another superb defensive effort. Go right back to you, Jordan. Your memories from trips to Madison. We'll finish with some fun memories of Madison.
Well, it was to be able to, I think 2009 was the last time we had the Heartland Trophy. So to go to Madison and finally win it back was an awesome feeling. It was one of my favorite runs too, putting that the quarterback / safety on skates. But it was just a tough fought battle too, where Desmond, I remember, had 2 picks. I didn't score, but I know I had a good day. I think I had like 140, and Line was just playing good. But again, it was still more of a low scoring game of battle, but the defense just made huge plays, red zone fumble. It was just obviously a great feeling to hit the locker room. But myself personally, wasn't in the highest of spirits in the locker room, I remember, because one of my last runs I fumbled, but got recovered, I think, by Cole Crossan, possibly. And you saved my life. Like, I was so upset that I put my team in that position, possibly get them the ball back. But yeah, it was still to walk in that locker room, celebrating, getting the trophy back after so long was an amazing feeling.
It's amazing how you players and coaches, and now you guys are former players that are coaches, remember those heart-wrenching moments as well as the joyous moments. Jovan, memories from Madison for you?
I mean, I got a lot of them. Actually, my 2 best friends that I played high school ball with both went to UW and played for the Badgers. So one of them was getting recruited heavy by Iowa, and he ended up taking the scholarship to Wisconsin because they brought his brother in. And I actually took the scholarship that he was given from Iowa. So it was a crazy twist on how it all worked out. But my memories of just being in Madison and playing against Wisconsin, first I had 4 interceptions against them in 4 years. So I always had good games against the Badgers. And it was always fun to be able to rub it in my guys' face that we were kicking their behinds every year. But it was always a good time to see our family members come down to watch both of us play at the same time. Lifelong friends that I grew up with, families close, just to see them all at the game was one of the best experiences ever. But my last year at Iowa, my senior year, we played against Wisconsin at Wisconsin. And during that game, the week before, I actually got hurt in warm-up against Purdue. And I didn't know whether or not I'd be able to play in the Wisconsin game, but I actually came back. I had a hamstring injury, and I came back, and I probably played one of the most perfect games that I could have possibly played in that game against Wisconsin. I mean, I had a couple knockdowns on a couple deep balls, ended up getting the interception. Wisconsin's a great place to play. The jump around thing and the way that their fans are is a lot like Iowa. So, but I have a lot of vivid memories from playing against Wisconsin. And I ended up marrying a girl from Wisconsin that was a Badger, but that didn't last long. So it's probably because she was a Badger and I was a Hawkeye. So we didn't mix well. So.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, things happen for a reason. Isn't that what they say?
Absolutely.
We'll see what happens. Wisconsin opens as an early 7.5-point favorite in this game. Deacon Hill with his first ever college road start, going back to the school that recruited him out of high school and where he was last year. So a lot going on this week that's going to make this a very interesting game. For all intents and purposes, if you've looked at the Big Ten West, this could be for the championship this weekend with these two teams. I think these are the two best teams in the West. So we'll see how that shakes out. And we'll be back to talk about it next week, most likely Sunday around 11 Central, noon in the East, because I'll be up in Madison. So getting back in time to do a podcast probably isn't going to happen. But I will let you guys know what time that will be on social media. Probably do need to do an ad read here, being as I didn't get it in earlier. Support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. Thank you to Systems Unlimited. Thank you so much to Jovan and Jordan for joining me and adding their expertise on Iowa football and football in general. Thank you all for listening, and we will be back to talk to you next week.